right, welcome to meeting 64 of the Junto Club. In 1927, Benjamin Franklin organized a group of friends to create a club for mutual improvement. Inspired by his Junto Club, we follow in the same tradition and loosely look to discuss like topics such as around science, philosophy, politics, and business. Any topic that we are interested in. So, um, with me today are Mike and Matt, the original three trio, I would say. Any comments on that one?
You say 1927?
1727.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure. I thought I heard 1927. I was like zombie Benjamin Franklin.
It's
Okay.
it's possible. Now we talked about earlier. We are in the
Yeah,
afternoon, so my brain is not functioning as well. It's not
fair
in the
enough.
yeah
Future episodes will have fewer
yeah yeah.
issues like
Yeah. I
this.
usually say that it's inspired by the Jingle Club 300 years ago, right?
Fair enough. Let's
hmm
start with the quote.
Today I'm kind of deviate a little bit. There's a book. The title is Excellent Advice for Living by Kevin Kelly. Who do you know who's Kevin Kelly?
No.
No.
Do you know Wire magazine?
Wired magazine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you read, technology. You guys read it, or I mean, probably have read some of the article, right? So yeah, Kevin Kelly is one of the. He was the co-founder of the Wire magazine. He was the chief editor basically, until like 19 maybe in the 2000 something. Anyway, so yeah, so he wrote many books on just thoughts on technology or any other stuff. But this one basically he during and his like 65th birthday, he just tried to write down some like advice for his kids basically. So, but and then he just, and then he realized actually as he's writing, he realized he has a lot more to write than just a lot of things to dole out. So yeah, so it basically became a small book and he published it basically. So it's called Excellent Advice for Living. So just it's a very small book, just about like just quotes that he rebranded over time. So he's not claiming that anything is original, right? He basically probably a lot of these quotes are probably repeated by other people too, right? He just wrote it down and then rewrite it in his own words a little bit. So yeah, I think it's just good place collection of like quotes to go to and then perfect for this. All right.
All right, you're gonna
Anything?
try to sneak two books into one Junto Club meeting. This is what I'm hearing.
Yes. What's wrong with that? More learning for you guys, more bang for the buck.
All
All
right.
right. As long as we keep it interesting, of course. Anyway, to start, its first quote is don't be the best, be the only. Does that make sense for you guys?
I mean,
Yes.
yes.
It's very
Less.
condition
Very conditional. All
very
right.
conditional, you know. It
Okay.
makes me the first thing it makes me think of is video gaming, and it appeals to my hipster heart because I love trying to do like weird strategies or using like the character no one else uses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But over many different genres and games, the people who are usually the most successful are not the innovators who are like trying to come up with weird strategy. The people who usually win the most are the ones who just like hone and practice execution of what's like known to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not bad advice, but I would say it's conditional.
Next one. The more you are interesting others, then the more interesting they will find you. To be interesting, be interested.
Yeah, people like talking about them. So it makes sense that if you're
Yeah.
interested in them, then they're gonna be enjoy
Yeah.
talking to you.
I think we talked about that before, and then that one I think we it came from the book like How to Win Friends and Influence People. Right. I think that's one thing that we the main takeaway, right? Um yeah, just remind us that actually we need to go back and revisit that book in the future. All right.
Have
The
you
third
won
one
any
actually,
friends since I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, have you won any friends since you've read that book?
Not many. That's why I need to go that's why I need to go back and revisit it.
All right, all right.
All right. Third, learn how to tie a bowline nut. Practice in the dark with one hand. For the rest of your life, you will use this nut more times than you would ever believe. Uh, I actually had no idea it was a bowline nut before I encountered this quote. Have you guys, do you know what the knot is?
I do only because I Googled it when
Uh,
after I looked at these quotes.
the reason I like this code is just because it's quite practical,
Do
practical
they use it
advice.
in sailing? I feel like
I
that's
think they use it when you go to, actually when you go to like rock climbing.
no, it's a
Yeah.
knot I had heard of, but I feel like I heard about it when I was, young, when I
So yeah,
when I
you
actually would have
listen.
used knots.
Yeah. This knot you can use it for anywhere, like for tying boats or anything. It's a very strong tie, it's strong knot. But
Hmm.
it's also very easy to like you can like loosen it right instead of like having a painful experience like unlike tying it. So it's very
See,
strong, sturdy, but very easy to untie as well.
I think I'm gonna try to remember how to tie this, but my first reaction is I've never needed a bowline knot, but maybe I have and just not realized it.
Hmm.
And if I know how to tie it, then suddenly I'll be like, oh, this is so useful.
All right. Next one. And first, buy the absolute cheapest tools you can find. Upgrade the ones you use a lot. Right. And this reminds of a conversation we had earlier before we start recording is your headphone, right? So you think you'll regret, Matt, you think you'll regret upgrading your headphone, but no, if since you use it a lot, you should probably get one of the best, right? So
Yeah. No, this is good advice, and I've heard it in other places and contexts before. Like, buy
hmm.
something cheap, and then if you use it enough to break it or whatever, or get annoyed with it, yeah, then spend a lot to get something nice. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes some people jump right to getting like the good version of something when
Yeah.
they're not sure if they're like going to be invested or interested.
Hmm.
And I've also heard the phrase buy once, cry once,
Buy
which is
what?
like buy once, cry once for like more
Uh,
expensive items. It's
uh,
like you just one time buy like the really nice one you want. So you
hmm.
don't like buy something like medium.
Hmm.
Like this is like in the context of like you're getting into something like motorcycles, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm,
it's like you buy like a cheaper motorcycle but still expensive, but then you really want the nice one, and then like a year you're just like, well, now I got to buy the second one. And it's just, buy
yeah.
once, cry once. Different
If
context. I think this is the better advice, honestly.
Yeah, no, eat buy once, cry once. If it's something that you're gonna use very often, right? Motorcycle.
Yeah.
Now, if you sample different things, now you don't like it, and then that's why in the beginning you buy cheap stuff just to sample it, and then once you find the one that you usually most often, you can upgrade. All right, next one. To make something good, just do it. To make something great, redo it.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because this can apply both to like your skill at doing something or the thing itself, right? Like, I mean, this is in some ways, this is like agile coding, right? The whole point is you're not trying to plan perfect code, you just implement it and then you're fine rather than like trying really hard to do it right the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like sort of agile based thinking. Like do it and read it. Yeah, because actually doing something reveals more sort of issues than, any amount of planning sort of ever will. So,
The important part is the willingness to redo things
yes.
after you've done it once.
Next one, whenever you cannot decide which path to take, pick the one that produces change. Hmm.
That's interesting. And I've never heard that, but I actually think that's a really interesting insight because people have a tendency to avoid change. So I feel like this is a heuristic to combat that, right? Like if you're unsure between two paths and one had you think one causes change and one doesn't, you're not like you're probably biased towards the one that doesn't. So if you see them as even, go for the one that causes change.
Yeah, I mean, in general, change is better, but like, I guess I am thinking about instances where it's like, I don't know, like instances where you may need to like heal or recharge or something like, I don't like perpetual change can be dangerous, but consistent change is good, but like if there isn't maybe periods of sort of homeostasis, I feel like it can be not good.
Yeah, but this one is for like when you cannot decide between two
Oh, when you
paths, right?
cannot decide, I
Yeah,
say.
you cannot
Yes,
decide. And
yes,
there's
yes.
two paths, you will or just pick the one. Or multiple paths, now you cannot decide which one.
Right.
Next one, find smart people who will disagree with you. That's why I like talking to you guys, especially Matt. He always disagree with what I say. So.
Well, that's because you like to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, it
Most of the time,
seems
I'm
very
like,
much a contrarian, yes.
Yeah, but
it's
sometimes
good.
I have some ideas, and then I explain to you guys, and you actually disagree. So okay, all right.
It's good. It's good. Disagreements are good as long as you keep it friendly.
You may need a robot in there to keep the emotions in check.
Don't traumatize me with that, Michael.
Last one. Pay attention to what you pay attention to.
Attention.
Metacognition, one of Michael's
Oh,
favorite topics.
that is my favorite topic, but yeah, no, that's good. I like it. No, yeah, I mean, attention is a limited resource. There's many studies that show that. So you got to be focused on things that are important.
Any mini topics before we get on to maths, politics, top line?
What the heck does that mean?
Whatever's on top of your mind regarding politics.
Oh,
Anything you want to
oh.
rant about on top of your mind. It's called top
Uh,
of mind.
yeah, sorry. I'm kind of out of the loop for the last
Really?
week because I
Okay.
was traveling for work, so I wasn't looking at like anything for like news or anything. So, um,
I got rid of
Okay.
all social media, so I am like so far removed from everything. Like I literally no longer go on X or Reddit, so I'm just
Oh,
like the world is a black box to me now.
oh,
is that
interesting. So you
is that
was
healthy for your mind, bad for your civic duty? But
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
it's bad for the podcast.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, I believe me. I was like, I literally have no hot takes because like I know nothing right now.
I don't need to do a partisan rant about how the current Republican Party is literally like the worst political party in, I don't know, in the like last 50 years, maybe. I don't know,
Hmm.
whatever. We can move on to other topics. This isn't going to be fun.
I
No one wants
thought
to
you were
hear
gonna
this.
say ever, and then I was like, well, what about the Whigs? But yes.
What about the what? Oh yeah. Well, you go far enough back and there were some worse things, but you have to go a little bit far.
Well, yeah, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I mean, you should take your time because this segment is dedicated to Matt's rant. Which I just need to call it Matt's rant instead of
All right.
the. Yeah,
If we want to make a Matt rant segment go forward, I guess I can do that.
It's like
yeah.
the
But does it always
Family
have to
Guy.
be politics or can it be a rant about anything?
Anything.
Okay. Because, old people who struggle to get on and off airplanes and take their carry-ons and stuff, but they don't just like sit and let everyone get off the plane. They're like intent on getting up fast to just like block everyone because they take like 5 minutes. I don't get it. You're obviously not in a rush. That's all right. Why don't you just let people go by and go off at the end of the plane ride? I don't know. Doesn't make
Okay,
sense to me.
Yeah,
okay,
that's a solid one,
okay.
actually.
And then that's a Kevin Kelly advice on that. Be patient with the old people in front of you because that is where you will be, right?
I
One
mean,
day,
maybe Matt
maybe.
will be a sit there person.
Yeah. But maybe once the
Because
time,
because that's you in the future, basically. That's the point, right? So be patient. Yeah.
you can know. Look, well, hopefully, I'm hoping to keep myself active enough that I'm not
Hmm.
like struggling to move. But if I get to that point, I would like to think I'll just let the young people go
Hmm.
and then I'll get off at a calm, leisurely pace with no pressure. But
Hmm.
maybe in,
Hmm.
40 years, I'll be like, I don't give a shit about other people. Fuck them
Exactly.
kids.
Yeah. So, all right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Like the Family Guy segment, what really grinds Matt's gears.
I don't think I have enough things that really get under my skin to like make a continuous segment, but we
Besides
can
old
try.
people. Besides old people.
It's just gonna be me hating old people every single time, every
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah.
No, I'm generally okay with old people. They're fine.
Mm. Yes. All right. Anything else before we go on to the main topic?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Bob Noyce, Robert Noyce. So it's based on book The Man Behind the Microchip. It's a biography by Leslie Berlin on Robert Noyce. So
Hmm.
who's Robert Noyce? He's the founder, the best known founder of Intel, founder of Intel. And then also previously before that is a Fairchild Semiconductor. So and then also he's the inventor of the integrated circuits in 1959. So why, why I actually like to study Bob Noyce? So here's a quote. Bob Noyce took me under his wing. I was young, in my 20s. He was in his early 50s. He tried to give me the lay of the land, give me a perspective that I could only partially understand. That's from Steve Jobs. So he was a mentor of Steve Jobs, and then I think Steve Jobs continued saying that you can really understand what is going on now unless you understand what came before. So yeah, so he was mentor of Steve Jobs, and then Steve Jobs have a good point that you kind of need to understand the history too. So starting Bob Noyce is a good way actually to understand the history of like semiconductors, especially with now physical AI, just AI stuff with GPUs, right? On NVIDIA, on the chip companies, right? So AI, and to understand now actually is would be beneficial to go back and understand like how was it like at the beginning, right? So this is literally the beginning of the semiconductor industry, and this is where integrated circuits came in, right? So yeah, and so back to Steve Jobs. So actually, he was quite because he was very young when he's like probably in his 20s, and when he just started company when Bob Noyce was like mentoring him. So actually, he used to go hang out in his house, just lie on the couch and then crash in his place, and then also he usually used to call like Bob Noyce at night, very very late, like maybe like midnight or 2 a.m. And then Bob Noyce actually told his wife that if he's caught late again, I'm gonna kill him. So, but but he's still answering the phone when Steve Jobs calls. So, all right. The other one is quote is everybody liked Bob. He was extraordinarily smart people who did not need to let you know that he was smart. He could be your neighbor, but with lots machinery in his head. This is from Warren Buffett. They were serving on the Grinnell College board, so they were on the board together. So Grinnell College was Bob Noyce's alma mater. I guess he went to the college. So yeah, and then also even though Warren Buffett and I did not really personally invest in Intel, he actually support like Grinnell's decision, the college decision to invest in Intel, right? As Warren Buffett put it, we were betting on the jockey, not the horse. So not an idea, but on the jockey. So and the last one, as you already know, I usually like so thousands of people when attended basically his funeral memorial service for Bob Noyce. So as you know, I like to study, if you a thousand people went to your funeral, that someone is worth studying, right? So
He seems like a popular guy.
No, seems like a good egg. Um, I don't know. The only thought that jumped out to me was when you were talking about he didn't need to let people know he was smart.
yeah.
That was a theme in Death of a Salesman. There was that kid who lived next door or whatever who like tried a Supreme Court case or tried a case in front of the Supreme Court rather, and Willie Loman was surprised he didn't directly tell him about it. But the whole point was he didn't need to tell people about it because he had done it. That thought just popped into my head, so that was my thought when you were
You mean a
listing.
murderer? Is that he doesn't need to tell about someone he murdered someone because he done it. He doesn't need to tell people that.
Yeah, well, no,
That
like if you're
yeah.
good, like you don't need to tell people you're good, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. Very, very related.
Yeah, so I mean, he's smart. He doesn't need to tell people he's smart. So there you go.
Yes. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Going back to early history, when he was 12 years old, here's his quote he wrote in his journal. My hobby is handicraft. I like this hobby because it is useful. You can make things cheaply that are worth a lot. So, I mean, he wrote it when he was 12. So, just thinking back when I was 12, I wasn't thinking that big. So, yeah, of course, as he was younger, he was interested in a lot of like building stuff basically. Like he built a radio from scratch and motorized his sled by welding a propeller and an engine from an old washing machine to the back of it. So he was definitely a lot of doing a lot of tinkering stuff when he was younger. And he was also like uh very good and convincing people that to join his event, like just like tinkering stuff too, like leading a team. And so a lot of stuff you can see when he was younger already. And then he was also very interested in flying too. So I would say the most significant turning point in his life is probably when he was in college. Uh, and I mentioned in the Grinnell College, the private college in I think it's Iowa somewhere. So in that college, the most important person in his life probably came in, which is one of his physics professor called Grant Gale. Um, so here just a couple of things on Grant Gale. So uh, he's a physics professor, but in his like class, he usually focus on demonstrating the relevance of physics to daily life, right? So he a skill like note taking. He doesn't care about whether you take notes or not, because that's what he's quoted, and that's what textbooks are for, right? So in favor, but he rather want to do like real life demonstrations. So anyway, I wish I have a teacher, physics teacher like that when I was in college. And then his quote is that his philosophy really also about learning is that if you cannot define it in one sentence, you probably don't understand it. I think that's a very good very good summary of like understanding true like learning, I guess. So
I've heard similar quotes before where like if you
yeah.
can't explain it simply, yeah, then you
Mhm.
don't understand it well enough.
Hmm. Yeah.
And Einstein was like it's easy to make things more complex. It like takes true genius to move in the other. Like he said something about yes,
Yeah.
simplicity.
Oh
Physics
yeah.
is pretty good for having like relatively simple formulas actually create like deep insight, you know?
Hmm.
It's not like chemistry, which is so messy or other subjects. So
Good teacher is always important. So yeah, even for my experience, right? Like in physics, I did have a very good teacher. It was in elementary school in China, middle school in China. That actually changed my perspective on learning. He also like he was such a good teacher, and he's very good with like give you pep talks too. Like got me actually really interested in study. So but beyond that, I really never really have any good teacher do something like someone like that. And I do like focus on real life like connection, what you study, like what you're teaching, connection to daily life, right? That's one of my frustration, I think, in learning too. Like in even in high school, like a lot of time, even math, right? A lot of times they're not really related to uh life, like daily life. So it's kind of doesn't kind of so that's why I was not like very interested in learning it because I don't see a point, right? So
Yeah, no, computers, like when I learned like linear algebra related stuff in like computer graphics, like I like understood it better and found it far more interesting than like studying linear algebra in just in isolation. So,
mm,
so
yeah.
it's tough for teachers out there. I mean, this is are we okay with just doing a full,
Of course.
tangent, something
Yeah.
else?
yeah.
I remember talking to like a, distant relative, and they were like, they did the classic, like, oh, trigonometry, who uses that, right? Like, they
Mm,
teach us that in school, and it's stupid because it doesn't apply to real life. And I'm like, I use trigonometry like every week at
hmm.
least. And then I know other people who are like, use it every day. And, like if you're ever trying to do like directions and vectors in the real world, like it immediately comes into play because of angles. So, what applies to real life is a very much a moving target or
Yeah, but I think it's
yeah,
the teacher's job to actually to make that obvious for people,
yeah,
for the
I guess
students. I
that's the
think
thing.
your relative that did not make the connection, that means his teacher did not make that connection for the students, right? So,
Hmm.
uh,
That's true. They could, even if someone's like, I don't ever want to go into like engineering or woodworking or anything that would use trig, they could at least make it obvious, like, oh, this is important if you want to do all these different things, and maybe you don't, but like there is like a grounded use for it for a lot of
mhm.
people.
Yeah,
Anyway, all right, back to Bob.
nice. All right. So back to the physics class, actually. So in one of his class, Grant Gale had begun talking about a device so unusual and potentially revolution that Gale's description of it struck Noyce like an atom bomb. Noyce later explained, I could not grasp it how it worked, but why it worked immediately, but that it worked. And that device is called transistor. Can you guys describe what is a transistor?
All right. You have, so first you take a
Yes.
semiconductor,
Uh,
okay, and you dope it with positive or negative ions,
mm,
and then you layer that,
mm,
and that makes a junction, so a
mm,
PNP junction,
yeah.
and then it's some magic bullshit where if you apply voltage to one side, it allows current to run through it or not. That's the main
Yeah.
purpose. You can
Yeah.
also use transistors to like amplify stuff, and
Mm,
like in EE, they do it for like
mm,
op amps and other things. So you can do it for more like detailed work,
mm,
but the one for computers, it's a switch. It's a switch you can turn on and off with electricity.
yeah.
Basically, apply voltage, and that changes the conductivity of a solid material.
Nice description. So you
I have
still
an
remember
EE
it?
degree.
Yeah,
It
I
wasn't
had
a
a
great description. It was a maybe good enough.
Yeah, yeah. I think most right nowadays we always envision like transistor as a just a switch, right? You apply current, there's a current going through. Uh, but the first transistor, as you mentioned earlier, is the mono-appearance junction, whereas the mono analog is more like mostly for analog device, more like amplifying signals, right? So for it's an
Mhm.
amplifier. Before transistor, there's something called a vacuum tube, with a big tube that's used for those purpose. That's why a lot of well, military. It was actually invented in a Bell Lab, right? Before that, it was a lot of like you got a lot of like electronics, basically. I will not call it electronics, I guess. So yeah, a lot of devices they just use huge vacuum tubes, like especially for military applications. Like you had to, you want to make everything as small as possible, right? So, uh, but yeah, anyway, so in that class, basically, and that's when Rob Noyce got exposed to exposed to transistor, and that laying the foundation of whatever he's gonna do in the future, basically.
It's one of those interesting times where I don't think there's anyone when they first were looking at like a solid state transistor could
Hmm.
have comprehended like what it would enable in the future, right?
Yeah.
Like no one could have thought like, well, it's a switch that you can toggle electrically, and
Hmm.
then well, you can build that into a calculator, and
Yeah.
and data storage and data operations, and then like what could you do with that, right? Like it
Hmm.
would have been completely inconceivable, and it's kind of funny to think back, I think, but
Yeah. Yeah. And then Grant Gale is not he just a small college professor, but somehow he was able to have the foresight to study that device. And then at that time, like when Noyce got exposed to it, he got excited and he just saw it as a very basically got a glimpse into electronics in the future. But I'm assuming I would guess that probably that his foresight is probably was partly helped by Grant Gale. They probably have a lot of conversation like what we're gonna do in the future. So that's why he basically he when he go to grad school MIT in the future, he actually do his dissertation. He's focused on solid state physics like transistors. Even during that time like, in MIT, there's nobody that his professor was not even studying like transistors in MIT during grad school. So he was one of the few people before he went to grad school. He already know that he wanted to focus more on studying like, transistors and solid state physics, right? So yeah. All right. I kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So before at the end, before he went to MIT for grad study, actually at the end of his school year in college, he received a single honor from his classmates, the Brown Derby Prize, which recognized the senior man who earned the best grades with the least amount of work.
mm,
Or as Rob Noyce tried to explain to his parents, the recipient was the man who gets the best returns on the time spent studying.
that's a funny award. I like that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I would have been competitive.
What?
I said I think I would have been competitive. I tried to minimize my studying if I could.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, and side note, during his college, he's also an athlete. Like besides being like nerdy and do all the study, he's also a very good athlete. He's a very super good diver, and he swims every day. So, I think he was like in competition, like championship and stuff like that. So yeah.
I don't think
All
of
right.
diving when I think of athletics, but yeah.
Diving? When you
Yeah.
think about diving, you don't think about athletics?
Yeah. No, I mean like swimming is a different thing, but yeah, diving, I don't know.
All right, let's see you do a triple backflip 30
Yeah,
meters
what
in
are you
the
talking about? I
air.
think
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess it's more like coordination.
diving, I feel like diving is a lot harder than swimming. What are you talking about?
I you're probably right. I haven't diving or I haven't dove off a diving board in 20 years.
What grinds Mike's gears, is divers being in the Olympics like they're athletes or
Yeah,
something. Get those guys out of there.
yeah. It's like, I mean,
You're just falling. Anyone could do that.
yeah, exactly. You're just falling prettily.
Yes. All right. Sounds good. All right.
Uh,
Enough of the net distraction. But yeah, that was good. All right. Just back to Bob Noyce again. So at MIT, he actually in the beginning actually he did pretty poorly, like very poorly. So he did so poorly on his first test that he refused to tell his parents his grade and even asked his current girlfriend to stay away from the weekend, presumably because he needed to study, right? And he's like, even on the record, his professor marked Noyce's background as deficient, quote unquote, in several areas and required him to take to two semester undergrad introduction to theoretical physics. Yeah. And during that time, he actually Noyce openly questioned like what he was doing. Quote is from his quote at that time is, these people have some worthwhile goals in life. It doesn't seem to me that I have. I keep hoping that I will get wrapped up enough in physics to forget this. So, in the beginning, he was struggling a little bit, having some, midlife crisis, I guess, or early life crisis. Yeah. So,
hmm.
however, he performed in several musicals, landing landing a lead in at least one of them. Bob Noyce's confidence and charisma, not his innate talent, enabled him to pass himself off as an expert performer. Right? He was singing. His tone was not that great, accurate. But there he was singing a lead, basically. That's a comment from his brother when he visited him. And even at one time, he also auditioned for and joined Boston's Chorus Pro Musica. So basically one of the top choral groups in the country. Right. So I'll say yeah, he's a Renaissance man, right? And actually, there's a one instance where he accompanied his girlfriend to audition for a play, but he ended up with a role himself. So anyway, so and then also in short order he became working his way through the female chorus singers, dating one after the other.
All right, I'm starting to become suspicious of the accuracy of this book. Was this an autobiography?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a
Was Bob
biography. It's a
was Bob
biography.
Noyce just talking himself up?
No, it's biography actually.
Okay,
So,
okay.
I mean, he was also, there's a quote from his friend, a friend, he was as smooth as a silk. All the girls, wherever he went, were always very, very interested. And then here's another quote. Bob Noyce was physical specimen, explained his friend. He was built like a bodybuilder. Noyce like swam almost daily, like, anyway, well-defined physics. So, um, and the reason I'm actually bringing this up first, obviously, is he has a lot of interesting extracurricular activities, but also I think his charisma, his confidence, actually is going to help a lot he, in the future when he is in a, as a businessman, basically, right? So yeah, this is kind of natural to him already when he was younger. Mm. But anyway, going back to MIT, more serious topic is Bob Noyce. Actually, his dissertation, his title is A Photoelectric Investigation of Surface States in Insulators. Anyway, I did not read his uh, dissertation, so I don't know the details. But anyway, so it's basically about solid state physics, right? Part of the transistor basically like kind of making a lot of transistors and things like that, right? In surface state of like semiconductor, basically. So, um, in summer 1953, he almost finished his dissertation. However, in the end, he had proven a bit of a disappointment. Noyce had not been able to find evidence of surface states in the insulators he studied. To make matters worse, he had to admit he did not know whether his results meant that surface state did not exist in these materials or simply that his experimental methodology had been poor, right? So any thoughts on that? I mean, you guys done PhD study dissertation, right? So, I think the reason that I actually brought this up is because a lot of research, like even like in graduate study, a lot of what you study actually might not have a good result, but you can still get PhD from there, right? So,
Mhm. Sometimes what you're looking into doesn't pan out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
No,
I brought this
good
up just
that it's
because
honest.
yeah, you guys been through an experience, so yeah, just find it relatable.
So have you, Shu.
That's
Yeah.
why I have.
Don't try to forget.
I mean, I try to forget, but yeah. No, no, I feel like honestly, like I feel like it's becoming more and more of an sort of epidemic to just like publish, like spin bad results as like somehow positive or just like not publish them or like,
hmm
like you always try to like statistics are just more and more manipulated to
Mm,
like
yeah.
suggest value. And it's like there is value in saying like this didn't work or there wasn't a significant result. Like,
hmm
so.
Yeah, and that's I think even in grad school there's a lot of professors that said, hey, we should actually have a journal of like failed experiments or something like that, like bad
Yeah.
results. So that way actually people know like what's been tried already and failed. So instead of just publishing good results, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of lessons in what did not work.
Hmm.
Cool. All right, going back to Bob Noyce, but even though his thesis experiment did not work, but he actually whatever he studied laid the foundation for it was what he was going to do for the rest of his life, right? Um, all right. Now, post grad school. So, on January 19, 1956, Bob Noyce answered his ringing telephone. The man at the other line of the line, at the end of the line, greeted him with two words, "Shockley here." All right, that is William Shockley. Do you guys know who was William Shockley?
No.
Nope.
Damn, what the heck? You guys don't know any history about the technology. So
That's right.
William Shockley is actually one of the he did not invent transistor. However, the people that work for him, John Bardeen and the other guy, I forgot, sorry, I'm blank on his name. But anyway, those two actually, yeah, he basically he's like an advisor to those two, and then they actually invented the transistor in Bell Lab. So William Shockley also worked in Bell Lab. Actually, William Shockley it was actually got initially the transistor was just credit to those two people, like John Bardeen and the other guy. But then William Shockley got really pissed because he said he should get some credit too, and then he kind of squeezed himself in there. Anyway, so he's a anyway, he's definitely a very smart guy, but he's very difficult to work with, basically. Uh, anyway, so after that, he went to California to start a company called William, no, I think Shockley Semiconductors. So basically, he tried to recruit. So next during the recruiting process, and he called Bob Noyce, and the other person he recruited is Gordon Moore. You guys know who's Gordon Moore, right?
Is that Moore's Law?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I
that's when
didn't know his first name,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so that's where Bob Noyce met Gordon Moore. Of course, that kind of leading them to start Intel. But back to Charlie Semiconductor. So uh, of course, Bob Noyce want to join Shockley because Shockley is almost like a god. So that's his comment. Like he was like picking up the phone and talking to God. He was absolutely the most important person in semiconductor electronics, and he wanted to work for William Shockley. So So on the day he touched down in Bay Area at 6 a.m., the first thing Bob Noyce did actually before he went to interview, he went to look for a house, actually bought a house before he got a job.
No, I don't believe it. It's
Yeah.
just the same. I'm skeptical. This seems quite exaggerated.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
He was a hero to Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs. He was the sexiest person on earth while getting a graduate degree at MIT. And, he like called game winner and just got a house before getting a job.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
real quick
just
before my interview, let me just go buy a house.
Yeah.
yeah, he was confident. Anyway, I don't think we need to go to detail about William Charlie. So he basically, as I mentioned, he's a very a bad manager, basically. So he seemed to not trust his handpicked team. He was suspecting some of his like employees were leaking secret to somewhere. So he actually put them through a lie detector.
Did
Um,
that work?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it did not work. And then yeah, and there's no result in the end either. But yeah, he just doesn't trust his team for anything, and also like micromanage,
Mhm.
right? And then change the direction of the company all the time. And then he also just a terrible person, right? And in the end of his life, actually, he got into like eugenics and things like that. Even though he became a professor, like before, I think before after the company failed, I think just went work for became a professor in Stanford, right? And then he was into like eugenics and things like that. So I'm surprised that you don't know William Shawley because when you actually study any physics in like semiconductor microelectronics in school, you actually his name like when you study transistors, his name would come up because there's something called BJT, bipolar junction transistor. Now I think he actually invented that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. There was zero history or who invented this, and just this is like the physics of the device. Here's an equation. Start calculating stuff.
So anyway, of course it's not surprising that a lot of people will be leaving the company when he was, want to leave the company based, because of poor management from Shockley. So have you have you heard of the Traitors 8? Any okay, sounds good.
Traitor. Traitor?
Yeah, Traitors.
Okay, no. No.
Yeah, Traitors 8. So basically 8 people from Semiconductor. They were branded as the Traitors 8 because they actually left and then started another company, uh, abandoned William Shockley, uh, basically. So these are very smart 8 people like Julius Black, Victor Greenwich, Gene Horney, Eugene Kleiner, Jane Loss, Gordon Moore, Sheldon Roberts, and Robert Noyce. So
I was about
Hmm.
to ask, was our pal Bob in this Traitorous Eight? He
yeah,
was.
yeah. Actually, in the beginning, it was just 7 people, and Bob actually did not want to leave because he wasn't sure about leaving because he was doing pretty good leading the team, and then of course, but anyway, they actually convinced Bob Noyce to leave, and actually, without Bob Noyce, they would not be successful because actually Bob Noyce is a key leader, right? As I mentioned earlier, he has our charisma, confidence, and then just a natural leader. So anyway, so that's why actually, and then they actually, so with these 8, they started in the Fairchild Semiconductors. You guys heard of Fairchild, right? Semiconductors. Okay.
That name's familiar.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So basically, they started as Fairchild Semiconductors. So it was called Fairchild is because it was mostly funded by Sherman Fairchild, owner of the Fairchild camera and instruments in New York. So he agreed to fund them, and then also have the option to purchase like stocks like a few years later. So um, they're actually gonna lay the foundation for Intel actually. So before I go there, so during that time, during Fairchild Semiconductors, that's where actually Bob Noyce invented the integrated circuit. Now, do you guys know what is a integrated circuit?
Do you want a description or just a yes, no? I'll give you a
Discretion.
yes.
Discretion.
Well,
Can
they
you
took,
explain?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. They took all the stuff you would have on a printed circuit board and they put it into a chip. maybe not all of this stuff, a lot of this
Hmm.
stuff. They build it in a chip. So it's all together, integrated, a bunch of parts to kind of make a more complete device. And then, of course, you put that on a printed circuit board anyway,
Hmm.
because ICs are so small that you can't
Hmm.
like access them. You know,
Yeah.
they're like they're microscopic components, so you need macroscopic pinouts to other parts. But
Hmm.
it gets a lot more power and features and capability onto one chip.
Yep. Yep. Integrated circuit basically, from the book, is a complete electronic circuit. Basically, what you say, electronic circuit built on a chip of silicon small enough to be carried off by an ant, right? Very small, tiny. And then before the integrated circuit, these like, as you mentioned, like components, right? These discrete components were attached to each other one at a time by hand, like soldering, in a process fraught with error and failures, right? Before the integrate circuit, the production process just was painful. Um, but we know integrated circuit, and then we know integrated circuit, right? So everything can be small, can be also be mass produced, easier to mass produce as well. And the John Bardeen, like co-inventor of the transistor, called the invention as important as the invention of the wheel. Does it make sense to you guys?
Just about. Was
Yeah.
when you say he invented the integrated circuit, did was did at the same time did they invent the usage of photolithography where they like use
Yeah.
projections of light to like
Hmm.
etch it
Yep.
out? Like
Hmm.
that was
Yes.
I
Yep.
guess done together. Like this is the manufacturing
Yep.
technique that lets us build something like
Yep.
this. It
Mm.
wasn't just the idea of like put it
Yes.
all in one tiny chip.
Yes. So the reason, and the same time, there's another person called Jack Kilby of Texas Instrument in 1958. Around the same time, he actually was starting to for building the integrated circuit idea. So he was working on it too. So actually, so in history, he actually got Nobel Prize for inventing the integrated circuit. Bob Noyce did not get a Nobel Prize because he died too young. He died before they got a Nobel Prize. But historically, they are both recognized as a co-inventor of intercircuit, but they do it separately, right? So Bob Noyce actually in his notebook he has all his ideas. Now, it's going back to your point of like delay inventor photolithography. Yes, the reason the difference between Jack Kilby the integration invention and Bob Noyce is just more like it's just more refined, call it more beautiful, I guess. His only way to describe it is that Jack Kilby's device still have wires like interconnection, whereas like Bob Noyce's device, everything is on the silicon, on the chip, right? That's why he call it a monolithic like integrated circuit. It's like everything is on the silicon, whereas Jack Kilby you still need to have very loose wires that connecting different things together. So now going back to photolithography, the reason that Bob Noyce can do that because in Fairchild, there's another engineer called Jim Honey. He invented the process called planar process using that mask photolithography to actually lay out all these chips that you can actually manufacture it. That's why. So yeah, that's what Bob Noyce. That's why Bob Noyce integrated circuit is a lot more elegant and actually also laying the foundation has ability to be mass produced. So yeah,
For our many listeners, I
yes.
guess we could describe photolithography for a second.
Go ahead.
Basically to to build the patterns of like metal and other things they want. We'll just say metal, right? Like they want to etch wires into a layer so they can just deposit like a layer of say I don't know copper or something. I don't know if this is exactly how they do it, but you can imagine
Hmm.
they deposit a thin, super thin layer of copper, and then they use a projection that will actually blast it off again. And then,
Hmm.
but they put that projection through like a screen that blocks it in some sections. So it's just like it's like a projector, like it filters out some lines. So some stuff material gets removed, some material doesn't. And since it's a projection, they can use lenses to make like someone. I think that when they started this, they literally drew like by hand the
Yep.
first lines of like where do we want the wires and where do we not. But
Hmm.
then they can use projection techniques to sort of take that larger thing and focus it into a much smaller image on the chip, which burns away the material they want. And then
Hmm.
it's a process of, yeah, layering material and burning it away with certain patterns to get, build up the layers that you want, which seems crazy, but it lets you make things much smaller than you could do any other way. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's when this process is invented, actually, Bob Noyce actually have to go to like camera stores buy lenses because back in the day, there's no one that actually making stuff from these. So he they kind of need to jerry rig things together. So yeah, actually, this process actually have been used until now because right now, TSMC or the other semiconductor manufacturer, they do the same, basically the same principle, same thing, except they just have a more refined, more small, everything's smaller, right? So they need a much better lens, right? But the principle is similar, right?
yeah, this is probably too big of a detour, but I saw an interesting video about how they do like I think it's like ultraviolet lithography now. So they essentially
Yep.
use we got to the point where visible light is too big, the
Hmm.
wavelength is too large for these circuits. So they had to come up with how to get higher frequency light. Um,
Hmm.
and it's much more complicated than you would think.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's like takes ridiculous amounts of engineering just to get higher frequency, shorter wavelength light so they can continue to make smaller and smaller patterns. But yeah, let's not go into that rant because that would be a
Hmm.
long one. So
Yeah. All right. Actually, to sign on that one, I would say I would just follow up. And the reason actually Intel kind of lost its edge now because they did not invest really in the EUV the thing you're talking about extreme I think ultraviolet light technology, and then ASML, the physics company that does that, and then they actually build a machine for TSMC. They invest in that technology like 20 or something years ago, and then now that's what is being used. Those machine cost like $1 billion. I think more than $1 billion at one machine. So
yeah, I think
yeah,
they're like the most expensive machine
yeah,
or the most complex machine, one of the two, maybe both that
yeah,
humans made. But yeah, I mean they had to like work on it for like 20 years, right?
yeah,
And I think a lot of people were like, is this ever going to work or if we just like wasted an insane amount of money? But
yeah,
now they're like the only company that can make it. So if you
yeah,
want like every business that tries to produce cutting edge chips has to buy like a machine from this one company. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah. It is. All right, going back to Bob Noyce. So I just want to go deeper dive into his method of like approach to work, like how invention, and how does he do invention, or his idea or his approach, right? So his quotes from him. I don't have any recollection of a boom that it is or light bulb like going off, right? Noyce later say of his idea. Instead, he conceived of the integrated circuit in a more like iterative method. He describes as, I thought, let's see if we could do this, we can do that. If we can do that, then we can do this. It was more like a logical sequence. If I hit a wall, I go back up and then find a path conceptually on the way through to the end. Once you have the path, you can come back and start refining, thinking in little steps that will take you there. Once you get to the point that you can see the top on the mountain, then you know you can get there. So it's more like iterative method. And the point is more like iterative invention method rather than like euphoria, right? I think more like it's kind of a little bit boring, but that's actually how maybe how people do inventions, right? It's more like iterative. And his point of like logical sequence, right? If like use as I think we talked about last time, like if it's more like a like philosophy, logic, right? If you can do this, then you can do this, like almost like deduction, logical steps.
Mm. So was he
So,
a fan of Kevin Kelly's book? Is that where he learned it from?
of course.
But no,
So,
yeah.
mm. Any thoughts on the method, on the approach to work, like innovation or cre invention, I guess.
I
I
agree.
th
You
I
agree?
think I think that's the majority of it, right? Because there's very few things that are truly just like out of nowhere, like
Mm-hmm.
crazy ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there are any, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when people do have this like crazy out of nowhere thing, it's like an accident.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of progress is, yeah, like iterative work. You take one step, you see, from there you figure out the next step.
Okay. Sounds good. Now here's also his concept on creative work, right? Basically starting small and building up. So compared to like William Shockley, when William Shockley want to invent, for example, he like to pull out all publications he could find in the relevant fields. He would then spread the patterns and papers across his desk and try to make novel connections among and identify potential fruitful areas that had not yet been investigated by other researchers. This is more like assembly line, right? Approach, I guess. But for Bob Noyce, his approach, Bob Noyce told a friend was to know the science code and then forget about it. Noyce creativity often require a kick start, usually in the form of a practical question from a colleague. Once his attention was engaged, Noyce did not start small and he did not turn to journals or patents files for ideas. Instead, he tried to think about the fundamentals of physics as big a starting point as possible, and he refused to ask himself whether or not an idea ought to work according to the most current research in the field. In his opinion, there were only two relevant questions in the earliest stage of scientific innovation. Why won't this work? And what fundamental laws will it violate? If an idea seems within the realm of physical possibility, then Noyce deemed it worthy of exploration. Conventional wisdom on the topic began. Any thoughts on the research method? And and it's based on in grad school a lot of professors who advise the approach of just looking on a research paper on there and try to make novel connections and see which so that way you can come up with something novel and new, right? So I think and then of course Bob Noyce is like, oh, just know the science code and then think about the fundamental principles and start from there and then go, yeah.
It's an interesting idea. Like he's still asking, basically whether something's possible from a fundamental physics question level, right? Like,
Hmm.
you're not gonna pursue research on a perpetual motion device because like offhand you can know it doesn't matter how it's supposed to work, it can't work, right?
Hmm.
Um, but with the idea that like if it's not violating the laws, then it is at least theoretically possible. Maybe you dig into it. That's probably I mean, that sounds like a high risk, high reward strategy, right? Like
Mm.
you might
Yeah.
go down some paths where it is potentially possible, but we don't have, say, the materials you need to actually build a device that does it. Or you might go down a path that other people, or you might realize as you go down the path that there's like a solution no one else was thinking about because everyone else was like, oh, that's, not practical currently, right? So
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, basically he's suggesting some I think he would suggest like just ignore and not ignore it, but when you do invent new ideas, try to ignore like what's possible in the field and like state of art in a way, right? I
mhm.
guess always a lot of research just start with the state of art and then see what's the state right now and then try to add to it or things like that. But he just suggesting like go from the fundamental principle and then imagine something completely different, I guess.
Don't be the best, be the only.
That's
Hmm.
right. All right. So here's his approach on such how he like to test his ideas, right? Noyce had come to believe that scientists could approach their work in two very different ways. Researchers could adopt the pretty approach, in which they devote a great deal of time and effort to developing a technique or machine that will allow them to test their ideas with exact measurements that yield final definitive answers. Or researcher can try the quick and dirty way, moving forward with an idea as soon as a rather rudimentary test indicates it will probably work. Noyce believed that the quick and dirty approach generate 90% of the answer in 10% of the time, right? So,
It's
so
probably
also
right
this is
about
also
that.
how he got a Brown Derby prize too.
He is a Pareto principle kind of guy, just always
Hmm.
being efficient about your work.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of times, like to test idea, you don't need you don't need a very certain answer, right? Just have a you probably this is gonna do some come up with some test to quickly test that this is probably going to work, right? So that way you can move on. All right, cool. Going back to the integrated circuit, uh, now he invented the integrated circuit. That's invention number one. But the second invention, actually, that Gordon Moore would argue is that he also invented how to sell the integrated circuit, right? Because while the integrated circuit is elegant and useful, it was very expensive at the beginning. Like for example, like if you create a circuit from discrete components, right, you probably cost $3. However, like the cost of integrated circuit will be $150, so like 50 times, right? And then when they first started, they a lot of customer basically kind of doesn't want to use integrated circuits, right? There are a couple of reasons. Well, there's two reasons mainly. One is actually cost. The other one is a lot of engineers, the customer, they was like, because they were actually hired to design these circuits, right? Build these circuits actually. Now, all the engineers are going to worry, like your customer is like, oh, what am I going to do if I buy integrated circuits, right? So if you build it for me, that means I done my job is at risk. You don't need to build the circuits anymore, right? So those are, anyways, I find that interesting just because of the current AI, right? Right now everybody afraid of losing, like AI is writing the code for you. People are worried about like their job and stuff. So is I guess it's always happened like that in the history. Like you always new the technology, right? So anyway. So invention number two is actually what Bob Noyce did. He actually decided to sell the integrated circuit instead of it cost $50, like 50 times than on the discrete components combined. He gonna decide to sell it a lot cheaper, like cheaper than the discrete components basically. That's why Gordon Moore calls like is a very gutsy decision to sell it cheaper than well, actually a lot cheaper than what you actually cost to produce it, right? But his reason is that it's like a printer, right? You print a book. Once you have the design, you just keep printing it, and the more people getting it. And the cost of printing is once you have the technology set up, like manufacturing process set up, is high cost. But once you start mass producing it, after you're gonna reduce the cost basically, so you can turn profit once a lot of people buying into it. So that's how he actually created a market, like get people to buy into integrated circuits.
Skip the stage of it being like a expensive niche product and say, look, this is going to end up being mass produced and cheap.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
let's just mass produce it,
Hmm.
make it cheap, and now we'll get buy-in from people because,
Yep.
right away.
Yeah. All right. So, as I mentioned, Jack Kilby got a Nobel Prize for integrated circuit, and Noyce did not get it. However, he did get the Stuart Ballantyne Medal, which was a pre prestigious science engineering award given by the Franklin Institute. Nowadays, this award is called the Benjamin Franklin Medal. This medal actually is better than the Nobel Prize. So, in my view.
Biased.
Moving forward. So basically, all this happened in Fairchild Semiconductors, right? So as I mentioned earlier, German Child, the Fairchilds actually have is the parent company, having the option to buy all the shares from the semi to own the company basically. So that's one mistake I would say Bob Noyce and made and when he forming a company. So in the end, that means in the end actually he kind of lose control of the company because it was bought by Fairchild. There's this Fairchild is a big company like in New York, and these are West Coast companies, and then it's also older style of management, right? So they, of course, going to have a lot of conflicts and stuff like that. So anyway, so a lot of pe people in the end left Fairchild Semiconductor to form like companies, and then of course Bob Noyce is one of them. Um, so he one day he approached Gordon Moore and he's thinking of leaving Fairchild to start a new company, and which ended up to be Intel. When Intel was founded in 1968, their first product was to build a memory chips because the memory back in the day was magnetic core memory, not reliable. So anyway, so it's very like not adequate for the computer needs like in the 1960s. So and then of course the integrated circuit like this technology actually make it easy to build like silicon memories basically. So in a way, actually, one thing I just gonna mention about in memory is just the way they took approach to how to develop the product because they actually don't know what's the best way to build a memory. So Bob Noyce took three approaches. One is the memory chip based on a well understood like bipolar transistor technology that we talked about earlier. The other one is to build a memory chip with like MOSFET technology, because metal oxide silicon technology, a much newer and less understood process. And then another one is a multi-chip memory that packs smaller memories into a single module. So Intel produced uh, the first its product, a 64-bit RAM, a bipolar memory device in 1969. However, bipolar memory was easy for other company to build as well. So a lot of competitors soon follow with a similar device. And then the other approach, it was the multi-chip memory, was just simply too hard to build, even for Intel at that time. So the MOSFET technology turned out to be a Goldilocks approach, easy for Intel to build, but hard for everyone else. So this helped like Intel to dominate the microchip industry for decades. So uh, I guess the lesson there is like when you approach to solving a build technology, right? What's your how do you build it is very important as well. If you use it easy technology, you're gonna have a lot of copycats. But if you go for something that's hard for other build but easy for you, that is the Goldilocks, the area where you want to stay in, right? So at the same time, actually, that's a very important in the Intel history is the first microprocessor, and it's basically just a computer on a chip, basically, right?
Yeah.
It's a very small computer on the chip, so very
Executes
basic one.
instructions.
Yeah. That's the first time actually. So the story of the microprocessor started in 1969 when BZCon, a Japanese calculator maker, contracted Intel to manufacture a custom chipset for its calculators. When Ted Hoff, one of the engineers, looked at the design of the BZCon chipset, he was really shocked by its complexity. Basically, it's very hard to build, right? For the cost that it was like promised. So BZCon design was consists of a number of logic chips, with each chip perform a specialized function such as calculation, printing control, and also the display the numbers, right, etc. And then Ted Hoff proposed a single general purpose logic chip that could be programmed to act like a calculator. Hoff's insight was to simplify the instruction set for this chip or a microprocessor by offloading most of the instruction to a memory chip. However, the BZCom team, Intel's customer, rejected Hoff's proposal. A frustrated Hoff brought this idea to Noyce, who in turn asked questions such as, "What exactly do you mean by building a computer to act like a calculator? What will be a chip needed to be what will the chip need to do precisely?" And proceeded to send Hoff on the most important business and technological side quest of the century. So the reason that I call it a side quest is because during this is like a year after uh Intel was founded, like later after it was founded, and then also like before like he had successful like built his first product on a memory. Actually, he was still having a hard time building a memory, right? So it was like before the company was yet to generate revenue, right? The main business is not going well. The company was also kind of in a crisis. It's in a survival mode to survival mode, right? And then an engineer just brought you a different, almost like a distracting idea that you need to uh spend resource to work on, right? So the reason I brought it out is like a lot of times like people say, oh, you need to focus your company, but sometimes maybe a side quest actually is good, right? So anyway, the result of that is actually Intel created the first processor in the world. So so it needs just come back to like Bob Noyce like management style in a way. Now he usually tend to like give direction like, exactly what you need to do, but he usually tend to make suggestions, right? When engineers come up with a question, he's like, "Oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that?" Right? So he believes that a job of manager is enabling, not a directive job, coaching, but not direction, right? So actually, just for forward, jumping forward a little bit is actually a secret project, a microprocessor, end up saving saving Intel because in the 1960s, 70s actually there's a influx of Japanese memory chips, super high quality and cost a lot less. Actually, Intel lost the market of memory to Japanese competition, basically. Um, so if if Intel did not have microprocessor in its back pocket, the Intel would have died, right? So with microprocessor, so it basically pivot to microprocessor and then dominated, from the 80s to now, basically.
I feel like a lot of the people you cover, it's just sort of like focus on the right idea. Because like, there's sort of like this is a sort of a side quest, but
Hmm.
it's like side quests can go, if you have too many side quests or the wrong side quest, that can sink a company just as easily as
Hmm.
not having the right one. So,
Yeah. On June 3rd, 1990, Bob Noyce lay down for a rest after his regular morning swim. As he slept, he suffered a massive heart attack that took his life. He was 62 years old. I would say died too young.
Surprised with all the swimming, he had a heart attack at 62.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes maybe on the workout you do is like not enough, right? So then make sure, and that's why we talked about earlier that sometimes you need to be in charge of the test that you do for your health. That speaks the end of the Bob Noyce story for now.
For
well,
now,
for
until he
now,
comes
yeah.
back in part two.
I mean, he's gonna come back when we talk about like other like if you want to get into like chip industry, semiconductor industry in more detail, right? With the current state of things.
Hmm.
Do we have an outro quote? Or have we quoted ourselves out today?
Yeah, we do. We have our quote, but this quote outro is from Kevin Kelly again, of course.
Hmm.
If you repeated what you did today 365 more times, would you be where you wanted to be next year?